When you talk about multimodal, can you give a couple examples of what those would specifically be?
Yes. Yeah. So a perfect example would be the Pointer trial that came out in the US last year. Thousands of individuals in their 60s and 70s, um, uh, high risk of dementia due to a variety of reasons, generally related to physical health. This was a repeat of a study called Finger that was done in Finland about 10 years ago and found the same results. And so they did multimodal interventions. So what I mean by that is there was a diet change, trying to focus on more of a Mediterranean style diet, lots of fruits and vegetables, seafood, things like that. Um, then there was a physical activity component. So they did resistance training and some kind of aerobic or cardio training. There was a brain training program. So they had them do brain training on an online platform. And then they addressed cardiovascular risk. So that basically means if they had high blood pressure or high blood sugar, or they had high blood lipids, they needed a statin or a blood pressure medication, something like that. They were monitoring those risks and then addressing them as needed.
What type of, you talked about fruits and vegetables, you talked about different meats and things like that. Do some of these cause higher prevalence potentially?
Yes. So probably the two main risks that I see that come from the diet are a diet that is very what we in scientific fields are called hyperpalatable. Basically means that it's easy to overeat, right? So we eat too much. That's associated with obesity, metabolic syndrome, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and that's very common with the modern diet. That it's very easy to overeat, and it's actually in some cases is kind of modified so that we eat a lot of it. So then that causes metabolic disease because we've sort of overconsumed calories for a long period of time. And the other thing that happens at the same time is we consume too few of the nutrients that we know are critical for the brain. So things that we have very good evidence for include B vitamins, omega-3 fatty acids, vitamin D, also potentially some things like magnesium. And then there's a lot of research and ever increasing amount of research on sort of some of the antioxidant compounds that we can get from fruits and vegetables, coffee and tea, berries in particular, and as well as some antioxidant vitamins like vitamin C and vitamin E. And these tend to come from, fresh fruits and vegetables. And then some can also come from things like seafood and eggs. So the yolks in eggs, what makes them yellow, those kinds of carotenoid compounds. There's something related that makes salmon and shrimp pink. Those kinds of colorful compounds, there's a lot of evidence that suggests that they're really beneficial for the brain as well. So the kind of double whammy effect of the current modern diet is we have fewer of those things, and we have foods that we tend to eat too much of that can then negatively impact our health.
So if I understand it right, you're saying that whether it's the keto or whether it is carnivore diet or vegetarian, whatever it is not a one thing is a individual contributor to it. It is a how do all these things interplay between themselves?
Yes, absolutely. So the way I think about it is I think of nutrients as like this great leveler. So I mentioned B vitamins, I mentioned omega-3 fatty acids, a whole bunch of things like that. As long as you get those, I think it matters much less where you get them from. So right, so I talk about this idea of dietary patterns, which just means that what diet feels good for you, feels sustainable, feels enjoyable, gives you all those nutrients you need, and makes it so that you're less likely to sort of overeat and potentially cause diabetes and things like that. And that could be anything from a whole foods, plant-based diet through to a carnivore diet, and many things in between, Mediterranean diet, everything in moderation. Like all of those can work. It's just making sure that you're sort of getting the right balance of calorie intake and nutrient intake.